Hello and welcome to the Terrace Scottish Football Podcast, a bonus episode of the Terrace Scottish Football Podcast nonetheless. My name is Joel Sked, and joining me this evening to review Livingston's first leg Premiership playoff encounter with Ross County is a man who wears many caps. But unlike me, it's not to hide a revolting and offensive hairline. It's presenter, podcast, or event host, YouTuber, and filming university students with his day job. It's Craig Telfer. How's it going, Craig?
I'm good, mate. I'm really good, thank you. I know this isn't an audio. This is an audio only issue. So just for the listeners, I decided to wear my hair down for this, just to give Joel something to aspire to. I
actually believe this is on YouTube as well.
Is it? Fantastic. There we go then. So the people at home can see what I'm rocking just now. But I've got to say, Joel, this will be the first time that you and I have done a podcast together in a long time.
It will be, yeah. Have we done one? I thought we had done one recently, but the fact that neither of us can remember it says a lot about that podcast.
Yeah, it was either a really bad podcast or it didn't happen, and this really is the first podcast that you and I have done in a long time.
We did Scottish Cup semi-final weekend.
Did we?
Yes, the only reason I know that because I was going through sending my invoice to Fowler earlier in the week because I thought I was going to get paid on Monday and I was running out of cash. So I messaged, I was like, can I put in an early invoice because I need some money this weekend. But thankfully I get paid on Friday.
Very much so. I am drowning, not waving myself here as well. So it's good to know we're in the similar size shitty boat.
Before we get into this, before we get into talking about this game of football, because I want to prolong it as long as possible, you have to tell me about Sunday night. You're hosting United's Player of the Year.
Well, I actually spoke about that on the show that Sean and I did that went out earlier today on the Thursday. So I've got to say it was an absolutely fantastic night. Absolutely fantastic night. It's the second event that I've done with Dundee United. The people behind the scenes are absolutely class, make my job very easy, and it was just a lot of fun. A lot of fun doing it. I think the fact that United had won the match the day previously and qualified for Europe, everyone was in a really good mood,
yeah.
And everyone was really happy to be there. So just really straightforward for me. Everyone happy to be part of the celebrations and all that. So very, very good.
I've not listened to the podcast yet, but I will look forward to listening to your event on Sean.
One thing I can say, because I actually did listen back to the part of it, and this is actually a sort of sidebar that I didn't share with Sean, so I can share with you just now. On Friday night, I was out with people from my work, and we went to the Horseshoe in Glasgow, and we went upstairs to do karaoke. And my karaoke song of choice is Fergus Sings the Blues by Deacon Blue. Now, I'm not a very good singer at all, but you know the way that song works, the way it's arranged, you can be quite performative with it. It's quite body language driven. I want to put on a show. I might not be able to sing, but I want to put on a good show. So I gave it my damnedest and stunk the joint out. Fast forward to Sunday night, who's sitting in the crowd? Ricky Ross, the singer from Deacon Blue.
Of course.
Big Dundee United supporter as well. I had the chance to speak to him, and I told him I was up at the Horseshoe 2 nights ago singing one of your songs, and he burst out laughing just hearing that. So, great to be able to tell one of your musical heroes that you absolutely butchered one of his great songs. So, great stuff, great night.
And I'm sure Sean with you talked about it, but how is Jim Goodwin? I've only had good things dealing with him. He seems like every time I've dealt with him, he's a brilliant guy.
Brilliant. Good sense of humour. Kind of bodied me a wee bit on stage for sort of comments that I've made in a view from the terrace mostly about his time at Aberdeen towards the end of his time at Aberdeen. You know, I suppose if you have to climb over an advertising hoarding with a cartoon cat on the front of it, you're not necessarily going to be looking your best. But I spoke to him at the end of the evening, and he was a really nice guy. Everyone I've spoken to that's encountered Jim Goodwin is unanimously positive about their interaction with him. And I was the same. Really, really nice guy. Looks immaculate as well. There was one point I was doing a Q&A with him on stage, and when he was doing a bit of talking, you can see him holding a room there. He's a strong, well put together man.
Both him and Derek McInnes have aged very, very well.
McInnes has aged well. I think I remember somebody saying that beards are almost like makeup for men. If you've got a beard, it can hide a multitude of sins. So that's exactly why I've got one.
I wish I could grow one.
Keep on trying, mate. Keep on trying.
Yeah, I'm unable to grow hair on my head, unable to grow hair on my face, but we will bash on with this podcast and get into the weeds of Livingston Ross County. Now, I think we viewed this game slightly differently. Going back to the very start, interested to hear your view on this because you are a lower leaguesman, but do you have a preference in terms of who went up or who goes up, who stays down?
No, I suppose the team, because I like John Maxwell. Obviously, John Maxwell and I began Telmies Pelly back in 2012 and we worked on that together for 3 years. And I want to see Ross County do well because I know that John's a big county fan. But conversely, having followed Livingston over the course of the season, I think they've actually had a pretty good campaign.
Mm-hmm.
I like Ryan McGowan. I had the opportunity to work with him in a view from the terrace and do a big podcast where I'm looking at the Championship. And so I don't really mind either side. I think that Ross County staying up is a good thing for like national representation. I think it's good nationally to have a Highlands-based team in the top flight. But I think it's quite funny to have Livingston in the top flight as well because they're a side who are unanimously disliked by all 11 other clubs. I was talking to a mate of mine at work today and who's a St Mirren supporter, and he said he fucking hates Livingston. He says, terrible football, terrible pitch, terrible ground, doesn't like them at all.
Lack of fans. Fans always get brought up in it. And that's at least kind of unanimous that because of Livingston, everyone just thought finally got rid of them. Both them and Hamilton have finally got in the Premiership, and then there's Livingston continue to knock at the door. Now, going into you look at there wasn't a lot of action. I thought there was in terms of the game. I thought there was a lot of energy, intensity, and it got to there was bits where you're thinking, right, something's going to happen here, and it didn't quite happen, but I thought Livingston, certainly over large periods, were the better side.
I think, Joe, I'm not sure if I used this comparison before. I think I may have used this in a podcast with Sean or a discussion with Sean, but you know that sketch from the Fast Show where the guy is watching the claymation puppets being made and he's got the big smile on his face and the guys are like, we're moving it just a tiny amount. And we're going to move this bit just a tiny amount. And the guy's grin just begins to fall away from his face. That's how I felt watching this match, where I thought to begin with, wow, this is really all energy stuff here. Livingston are kicking off here and are really looking to, I wouldn't say put the game to bed, but to try and get an early goal, settle down into the match and maybe try and get on one or two later on. And I think County struggled a wee bit to deal with it. However, as the game went on, the chances became fewer and fewer. Yeah. And I think there was decent attacking passages of play, but they never really amounted to anything. And I think that the overall feeling, I actually put this in my notes down with about 5 minutes to go. I asked myself, could Livingston regret not having put in this game to bed, given the chances they had or the times they get a break in the ball of the area and not execute it properly? And I do think that's the case with that penalty right at the very end. I do think that's the case. I think Livingston will be kicking themselves that they don't have a greater advantage because for all they were the better side in this, not by much, but they were the better side, to come away with it and not have an advantage to take up to Dingwall on Monday, I think they'll be really disappointed with that.
Yeah, 100%. And I suppose I really should have introduced the fact that it finished 1-1. Livingston took the lead in stoppage time of the first half through Danny Wilson, and then Danny Wilson conceded a very late penalty to allow Ronan Hill to smash in the equaliser, giving County a draw heading up to Dingwall, like you said, on Monday. And yeah, I wonder how much of a mental shot in the arm that will be for Ross County, and then the inverse, so shot out of the arm for Livingston going up there. But just wanted to get your view, because you've not seen a lot of Ross County this season. What did you make of them?
Ronan Hill and 10 other cunts, if I'm being honest. I thought that a lot of the time that I thought that Ronan Hill felt like the only player that was really going to make something happen there. I've listened to the Top Flight podcast, and whenever County are discussed, he's certainly one of the few shining lights that have come out the course of this season for them. And I thought that any time he got the ball, something looked like it could happen. I thought his deliveries from corner kicks and set pieces were quite dangerous. I think they put Livingston under a bit of pressure. In fact, it was his corner, I'm sure, that led to Jerome Prior pulling off a brilliant save on the line and tipping it tipping it around the post. So I thought he was really good. I thought, I was going to call him Kevin Nisbet, I thought Josh Nisbet did quite well in spells when he came on. Sorry, when he was playing there, he was able to sort of like dip into wee pockets of space and occasionally influence the game. Dylan Smith had a decent shot when he came on, but other than that, I didn't think they were a particularly good team. And I think that from what I've understand about Don Cowie, it feels like they're a team that don't have much width, tend to play a lot of centre backs. The team's quite fractured between attackers and defenders. There's not a lot going on in the middle of the park, and just I didn't expect much from them, and my expectations were largely met.
Yeah, they're not an enjoyable side to watch, and that I think showed tonight, and it made I think they probably contributed most to what was at times a difficult game to watch, and like a not an aesthetically pleasing game to watch. They don't have Noah Chilvers is a big miss for them. They don't have a lot of creativity, and then it does put a lot of onus on Ronan Hill to do something. You've got Samuel, who's good at running about. And then Nisbet, I think he's neat and tidy, but it's not really he's not as creative as Chilvers is. Mm-hmm. And then they've got just got guys, seems like just defenders who can play centre midfield, left wing back or centre back, and then it is left on Ronan Hill, who now it's not a comparison that many people want to be made, but he reminds me a wee bit of David Goodwillie in the way that he plays, and that he's hunched. He's bustling. He's got a lot of energy. He's a pain in the arse for the opposition to deal with, and he can play on the shoulder and running behind. He offers that threat, but he can also hold the ball in. So you can see why I think a lot of Premiership fans, no, Tony's a big fan of him. I'm certainly a big fan of him. You're looking at him thinking, if they go down, oh yeah, I would imagine Aberdeen fans would want him to sign. Dundee United fans, Hearts fans, Hibs fans, he would be a very useful squad player, because not only can he offer outside the box, but he's quite a good finisher as well. And his penalty is something you just want from your striker, just an old fashioned. I'm just going to hit it as hard as possible in the corner.
I think when you see the angle that was behind him hitting the penalty, I mean, it's actually a really good dive from Prior to get it. Prior reads it well. It's so well struck and so accurate and so powerful. There was absolutely no chance of him getting it. Yeah, as I said there, Hill was one of the few bright spots. You mentioned Samuel. I put him down in my notes. He looks like, I think I've compared them before to, he looks like one of the members of the family. You know, those dancing TikTokers? He looks like he could be a cousin, one of their cousins or something like that. It just felt like it was quite an easy night for Ryan McGowan. Ryan McGowan had a great game and deserved to get man of the match. But it was quite an easy night for McGowan and for Wilson, certainly up until the end when he gave away that penalty. But Samuel never really put him under any duress. I think a lot of the time he was looking for a scrap with him, but it's almost like McGowan and Wilson were able to put their hands on his forehead, and he was trying to scrap away at him when he wasn't going to get into it. And because of that, the ball didn't really stick up top. County tried to change it. I think it was in the hour mark where they took him off and brought Jordan White on. And yeah, Jordan White ultimately did a good thing for the team by winning the penalty. But I think a lot of the time he was quite some distance away from goal. I think at one point Ian Crocker remarked that he was playing like a centre back. And that's not what you want from Jordan White. You want to be him up there, shoving people about, and he wasn't. It just seemed all quite confused from County. And coming into this game, I know that Livingston were coming into this game as favourites, and I know that it was slight favourites because I think that there is a big gap. I think it becomes quite pronounced when you see the Premiership playoff finals when the Championship side eventually takes on the Premiership side. But there didn't seem to be that much of a gap, or there didn't seem to be as pronounced a gap here. And I don't know what that says about how poor a side this County team are. 7 consecutive defeats and 2 draws coming into this. And I think it showed.
I think if you were to come into this game blind or having no context or no knowledge of Scottish football, and you knew football but you didn't know Scottish football, and you watched, you was like, these are the two teams. I think you could have looked at Livingston and Ross County and think Livingston are the team that are holding on to the place and trying to hold on to the place in the Premiership rather than Ross County. And it just seemed like Livingston had a lot more about them in terms of how they handled the ball, kind of back to middle and then getting it into the final third. I thought they had a wee bit more pace. They had certainly had a lot more width. They had a lot more, just a lot more kind of cohesiveness.
Yeah.
Where it just looked like Ross County were disjointed. But the thing that let Livingston down, and it was summed up, I think, in two moments. One in the first half with Robbie Muirhead slamming the ball over the top. And then in the second half when Christian Montano was going towards the box and miskicked it and fell over. And it just seemed like a complete lack of composure.
Yeah, there was a number of times where I actually put in my notes that where I think that Livingston were getting a lot of joy. I think they had good combinations, particularly down the left there. I thought that Robbie Fraser and Montano linked quite well together. Mm-hmm. And on the other side, I think that Lewis Smith is coming into a bit of a game. He was excellent against Hamilton a couple of weeks ago. And I think he'd set up a goal against Partick Thistle, and he was quite industrious going down the right there, booked for a dive late on. But yeah, I suppose carelessness is one way to describe it there. I mean, the Montano one, I put that down to bad luck because that's just falling in your caboose. You know, that can happen to anyone. But the Muirhead chance that he scooped over the bar, you're thinking, you've got the opportunity. You're actually turning to shoot, and Montano's just in space about 5 yards from you. You could easily tee him up. Or do a wee shimmy to bring yourself back in. But the fact that Montano's just standing, and when the ball's, I think it was shanked out of the stadium, to be honest, which is some gradient that he was able to hit it on. I think Montano looking at it thinking, like, why on earth did you not square it to me? And you're right, those are the moments that'll let Livingston down. And I think as well they had good opportunities moving the ball into the box. I think they were quite penetrative with their passing. I think that Ross County struggled to match them, but it was just maybe taking an extra touch, or maybe when it went into the box that County were just like defended quite well in that way, where you're just like chucking yourself in front of the ball. Yep. And I think that's probably what it kept it at the score as low as it did. Sort of like really heroic last gasp defending and just indecisiveness on Livingston's part. But I think that there's. You're a bit more into the statistics, so you know better than me. But if you're constantly having to do last ditch defending or chucking yourself and blocking the ball when it's inside your own box, is that good defending? I mean, it's good sort of like, I know it's defending in its sort of like purest sense, but surely in terms of defence, the ball shouldn't be getting worked into those spaces as frequently as it does. That's not good defending.
No, it's. I think a good defensive team keeps the ball away from their box, or keeps the ball, prevents the ball getting into the box on a regular basis. Ross County didn't really do that, and I think he made a really good point in terms of taking an extra touch, because there were so many times where a Livingston player just seemed to, and it ties in with the last ditch defending, just shoot, and it was blocked. But it was one where it was just like, of course it's going to be blocked because you're shooting. It's like they're too rushed to get the shot away, and rather than just take a second, maybe take a touch and compose yourself, and then that allows you to create a wee bit of space to shoot. And I do think it was a wee bit of, Ross County last ditch defending, but also just Livingston didn't help matters, where they're just swinging their leg at it.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. I'd agree with that. And the one thing as well, I was actually quite dismayed. I'd completely forgotten about it until the broadcast actually started. VAR being in these games, and it proved obviously to be decisive there with Wilson tugging Jordan White's jersey. And it was quite interesting. I don't know if you will see his post-match interview, where I think it was Luke Shanley asked him, like, do you think it was a penalty? And he's kind of banged to rights because he's grabbed his shirt, but he said, he's going away from goal. It's not that he's a big guy, he kind of threw himself to the ground a wee bit easy, but yeah, it probably was a penalty. But even so, I think that's something that as a Livingston fan, you obviously want to see your team play at the highest level possible, but not when it comes with VAR, because VAR is rubbish. And it's just watching it, it's like the kind of football I'm used to watching. We're free from that sort of stuff. And then it was just not a nice reminder that this is part and parcel of if you want to play with the big time.
Yeah, I know. It's nice that when you speak to people who have experience of the Premiership and then go to lower league games, and the one thing they always say is how nice it is to be free of that. And then when you're watching the playoff games, and you feel like, oh, it's nice to be free of that, and then it only gets brought up in this last game. And I actually thought, because there was three moments of VAR. I think the three big ones was the penalty, which I think it was a penalty. It was just so needless from Danny Wilson to do that, and it was to go back to what you said about how Wilson and McGowan played up against Samuel. Is that Samuel? I just don't think he's ineffective enough because he's up against two experienced centre backs, and their knowledge and reading of the game is so much better. But then Wilson lets himself down so much with that, where the crosses are coming away from goal. Jordan White's kind of ducking down away from goal. It was just he'll be absolutely kicking himself with that decision. And then in the first half, it was the save from Prior, and then second half, I actually thought where I think it was Smith that got booked for diving. I think the Ross County defender, when the whistle blew, he thought it was a penalty. He looked like he had it in his face when he was like, "Oh shit, I've just conceded a penalty."
I noticed that as well. Yeah. What I did notice as well, this must be off the back of the Hibernian Rangers game at the weekend. They had cameras positioned along the goal lines.
Yep.
It was the point that I think Craig Anderson made on the main podcast, where the idea of goal line technology, bring it in, and how expensive it is. It's something like £500,000 a team. And it's a great thing to have, but how often is goal line technology actually needed? He said it's like per team, it's probably about like half a time a season, once a season maybe, something like that. And so I think that because of what happened on Monday there, Sky went to the extra effort to put these cameras in. And I think that had it not been for that incident at the weekend, there was never any chance that Prior had the ball was behind the line before Prior saved it. I don't even know they were looking for it. I thought it was a wee bit of a performance to make up for it. I don't want to get all sort of like red pilled or anything like that, like one of those weird blue tick fellas on Twitter, but it did feel like that was a bit showy, and that is like, finally we've had a shot it's almost been clear off the line, get the VAR, show them that we're paying attention to this sort of thing.
Just folk running around the van in the Livingston car park from the Sky production van. Exactly.
Another thing as well to notice sort of off the park, there was a wee bit of a set two at the end of the game.
It seems like someone put in the chat that the BBC suggested that a Livingston fan spat at a member of the Ross County dugout because they were going mental. There was one guy that would get held back. I don't know if we all react in different situations, but if someone spat in my direction, I would. I don't think I would be getting to the point where I would be getting held back and get my manager to point out the guy.
Oh, that's well. There'll be no harm in identifying him because Don Cowie. It was him, officer. It was him. I suppose that verbals and stuff like that. I think that for Don Cowie, he's normally quite an unflappable guy as well. I think when you see him being interviewed, like regardless of how the results gone, he's always generally quite measured. He's neither up nor down. But I think in this time, to see him get worked up about that, it must have been quite something. So I'm going to presume it was something as bad as spitting in.
Yeah.
No place in the game. There's one thing sort of like shouting verbals and that, telling somebody to fuck off after a last minute penalty, or somebody celebrated and it's gone a wee bit, you've taken it the wrong way. Spitting's disgusting, man. There's no place for that. And you said you'd have been held back for that. I'd have been so angry, I'd have been able to burst through the barricades and thump the guy that had done it.
It's more. It's just one of those things which what goes through your mind. You know, I'm that angry, I'm going to spit on someone. But it was Don Cowie told Martindale, and Martindale was kind of like, and then I
think he said, "I'm sorry." You can see him mouth, and it says like, "I'm sorry."
And then Ryan McGowan, it just seemed like, "Well, cool story, bro."
I wonder how do you see the second leg going?
I still think Livingston, and it's a lot of people will look into the momentum of it and the momentum of that goal, and they'll look at what Ross County have done in previous years and their experience going through it, and like going up to Dingwall, etc., etc. But just on the basis of those 90 minutes and what I've seen this season, Ross County just sort of so limited that I do think it's still there for Livingston, and they still should regard themselves as favourites. I just think they've got more to them as a team, and my fear for them is if Don Cowie makes the right decision and plays White and Hale, and they go a wee bit more direct to them, and it's if Wilson and McGowan can handle them as a pair, if they are Ross County are being a bit more direct, that's how I'd go approach it for Ross County. But if it's kind of like tonight, I would expect Livingston not to be so profligate when they get the chances they have.
I think Livingston have got, I can't speak for Ross County's squad or their injury situation and who's available, who's not available, but I think everyone's available for Livingston. And I think that's the benefit that they've had about finishing in second place and having that week off before they play Partick Thistle. I think that's hugely advantageous, and maybe there's something to be said about if you finish second in the championship in the current format of the playoffs, that's probably the best position to finish in.
Yeah, 100%.
Of them all, because you do get the extra game, and it's not as if the Premiership team aren't playing games. They still have to play games. There's more teams in the league, so they're not finishing at the same time. You know, they do still have more to negotiate and navigate their way through. And on top of that as well, for this, you know, Dingwall's a long way to travel and so on. I'm going to assume that Livingston will probably go up on Sunday and stay over in Inverness, and so it's not as difficult a trip. They go over, they go up there on Sunday night, and they're up at nice and early on the Monday. David Martindale's probably got them playing table tennis or something to keep the spirits high, and then they can go to a spa, whatever, and then then go on to the game. I think that, and when it comes to like in these sort of situations, it's not like it's like a part-time team that's everyone's having to take time off their work to go up and play this game. It's like full-time professional football where you do have these luxuries. Even at this level, you will have these luxuries, and so that distance won't be as severe. I'd fancy Livingston. I'd still put Livingston as favourites, but I do think that goal, you know, like the timing of the goal as well, all those factors, how well that penalty was struck. See if it was a sclaff or something, but just how accurate it was hit, how powerful it was struck. I think that'll have completely invigorated that county team going into this game, and I do think they'll take a lot from it. So it'll be... unfortunately, I won't be able to see the game. I'm going on holiday. I feel like I won't be able to do the podcast on Monday that accompanies it. I feel like Roy Keane for the semi-final against Juventus in 1999. I've played every game up to the semi-final. I'm suspended and can't make it to the very last game. But you know what, Joe? I'll be damn sure to give it the best opportunity. So the person that does come in to replace me, if that's a Nicky Butt, if that's a Ronnie Johnson, they can give it their best shot with whoever's doing it on the Monday.
Or David May, who just appears at all the celebration pictures.
I mean, you know, some fair play. If you're a Manchester United fan and you contributed a wee bit to this trophy, you'd absolutely milk it like it was a great big cow. Brilliant. Yes, I think that's weirdly enough, when I think about Manchester United's treble in 1999, it's not Ryan Giggs' goal against Arsenal, or it's not Teddy Sheringham poking that ball over the line. It's David May just with the trophy above his head, like he had single-handedly won it himself. Aye, fantastic. Sorry I'm not going to be there to see the final, but I'll be certainly keeping an eye out on the score.
No, yeah, I'm looking forward to it after tonight. Or give me 24 hours, then I might start looking forward to it.
You always look forward to these games. I know that I think it was, again, I don't like referencing the Terrace WhatsApp group chat, because I think every time I hear that, it's like I roll my eyes. It's like, I know, I saw it. But I suppose what I'm saying for the listeners, I'm taking someone, I don't want to pass off someone else's points my own, but I think it was Andrew Harrow that had said that this is quite a low quality run of playoff games. Mm-hmm. And I suppose he's right to an extent, but the Thistle games against United weren't great. The Livingston Thistle games, I thought they were quite professionally done from on Livingston's part. And I suppose that at this stage, it's not about, and as a neutral, you want to be entertained, but it's not about entertainment. At this stage, there's just so much at stake. And I think it's just being as professional and as just doing the job and then just getting out of there.
if this was what we Thursday, if this was a random Thursday night and this was a Premiership, just the normal Premiership game, I would have turned off after about 60 minutes. But it's the fact that you stick with it and there's still a lot of interest because the jeopardy that comes attached with it, and there's still that tension. And I just think all those factors just add to, maybe excitement's a stretch, but add to the interest and intrigue around it.
Definitely, I know what you mean. But it's I think it's well balanced. It's well balanced. I think that would it have been better if Livingston had. Maybe it would have been actually better if Livingston had still had the lead, because County would have then, as you said, had to come out a wee bit and maybe been like, we're just going to pump balls into this box here right from kickoff. We're going to play Ronan Hill. We're going to play Alex Samuel. We're going to play Jordan White. We're going to get everyone on and just punt the ball into the box and see what happens. But who knows?
I think the big thing is for the two managers, Don Cowie needs to find a better balance within his team. But I think David Martindale's perhaps got the bigger job in that he's got to get the team mentality, because you could see at full time he was gutted. Like a lot of all the Livingston players were gutted. But if they can switch their focus to Monday and Martindale can get in about them, which I'm sure he will, and get their mindset right, then I think Livingston will win it.
I agree with you, Joe.
Perfect. Well, is there anything else to add?
No, there's not. I just say I've had a really good time. We were worried that we'd only get about 14 minutes out of this, but there you go. Pad it at the start with a bit of inane chatter, and then just then talk about Roy Keane at the end, and suddenly you've got a half-hour bonus podcast. Perfect.
There you go. Perfect. Well, Craig Telfer, thank you very much. Thank you very much, everyone, for listening. Be sure to check out patreon.com/Terrace Podcast. There is plenty of content that is going up and always goes up. And it'll continue over the summer months. I don't think there's anything. We've got a quiz coming up, but it's sold out. So if you missed out, then haha, suckers.
It's going to be fucking class. I was actually thinking about it earlier today. I think Craig Anderson really is the best in the business. He's like a more palatable Richard Osman. Somebody who's not as self-satisfied and as smug as Richard Osman.
Hopefully he doesn't bring out a load of books that come out every 3 months, it seems.
Yeah, every time I go to Tesco, that's all I see, Richard Osman books.
Yeah. Don't get any ideas, Craig Anderson. But no, I'm sure they'd be better.
I think the next podcast coming out, I think it's myself and I think there's a Scottish Cup preview podcast, and then after that I think it's myself and Craig Fowler doing a review of the Scottish Cup. And I think that if Celtic score within the first 15 minutes, I've got a feeling it's going to be the shortest ever podcast that's been recorded, because I can't imagine there'll be all that much to talk about. So hopefully we get a decent game from the Scottish Cup.
It's very much a win-win situation, lose-lose depending on how you view it. But if Aberdeen win, then Hibs don't get 8 games in Europe. If Aberdeen lose, then Aberdeen lose. So that's also fine. But yeah, we'll see what that brings. And then next Saturday, I believe we're all getting together to do a award ceremony.
Yes, the big Terrace Awards. I think we're doing that in person round at Tony's in Edinburgh. So that'll be a lot of fun. That'll be next time I see you. We'll have a lovely holiday. Anyone else who's about to go on holiday, listen, have a lovely holiday. The rest of you have a nice weekend. Goodbye.